Welcome to another episode of Value Tech with UD. I'm trying to bridge the gap between business and technology through this podcast. And today we have the owner, dream builder, and coffee drinker of Color 9, Bill Madden. Welcome to my show, Bill.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Awesome. So let's start your story. How did you start this company?
Well, I've been in a creative director's position, graphic designer, started graphic designer, production artist years and years ago, worked up to creative director, worked at advertising agencies, worked at a direct marketing company, catalogs on building online presence as well, being creative director on some of those different entities. Senior director at Gateway Computer as well, and ended up moving to Omaha for a creative director position. And my wife, her and I had talked for years about starting our own thing. So we decided to launch Color 9 about 19 years ago, actually. So
That's a big time. So being an owner is not an easy job, right? So I often speak with many other entrepreneurs as well, like you, and it comes with so many sacrifices, right? Is it worth at the end?
it's what?
Is it worth?
Oh, yes. So you don't get to necessarily do all the things you want to. You've got the business side, which I know some business owners that are technicians, great at like an HVAC guy that I can think of right off the top of my head. Amazing at even overseeing the workers that he dealt with. But when it came to the business side, that's where they ended up failing. And it's just a lot of juggling. So not only are you trying to develop clients and actually do the work, but also having to maintain and manage your the business side and make sure your books are right and all that is, there's a lot that entails in that people don't see behind the curtain.
And so, as a creative director, you said brand building, right? So, what exactly it looks like, and how do you help companies?
So we do it in a number of different ways. One is as far as a company who might just be starting, we'll sit down with them and help them identify exactly who they are. So from when I talk about building a brand, I'm not talking about just designing a logo, creating a color palette. That's part of it, but that's actually down the line. We start off with really identifying what makes that company unique, what makes them authentic. So it starts with identifying like who they are, who they aren't, start building their core values, looking at who their target market is, what their purpose is, their why, mission statement. Then we start working into attributes of who they are, what makes, what's their personality. I tell people I want them to look at their brand like it's a person. So just like people have specific characteristics, each one of them do. You and I are totally different. We look different, we sound different, we act different. Brands are the same way. So when I'm talking about building a unique brand, I want it to be the DNA to be what that company is. So we really identify, tear it apart, and see what the soul of the company is, see who they are, and we have that resonate. Because we like to buy and work with companies that are like-minded, that have the same mindset, that kind of, have that you feel comfortable with. So you aren't going to work with everybody. You want to work with people that you like to work with, and vice versa. So we want to identify that, and then we'll also identify kind of the specific customers, because we want to talk to them. They're the heroes in the scenario, and we want to come alongside them with our products and our services, but we want to be unique and have a reason for why they want to be a part of our company and work with. So we start with identifying and building that. And then from there, we'll start taking, like with the attributes, some of the different processes that I walk through with the companies. We'll take that, look at those, and start building the visual brands. So your logos, your colors, icons, build your tone as far as the company. So is it quirky? Is it fun? Is it serious? Is it luxury? Is it discount? However that might be. And then we start crafting the visual and the tonal brand from there. The other side is because because not only we build that part, but we build websites, we build brochures and all that. So I can actually go into different companies. I've worked with Marriott, with Starwood Hotels. I work with Boys Town. I can go in and build around what their brand is and make sure we follow that so it represents who they are. So it's not just designing another pretty brochure, but it's like it's got to resonate. So there's a consistency to how we're communicating with their customers, with their clients, with the different entities that they work with, whether it's internal and external. And it also helps build when we start with where we, from the beginning part, like I was talking before, from the core values and all that, that actually helps the company build their culture as well, because they have something to base it off of, and how to hire different people so that everybody within that organization has that same vision.
That's interesting. So with the latest technologies like AI, all these tools, right? So how that work changed in your career when the times when you started versus now?
Well, when I started, it was cut and paste, big cameras. So it's come a long ways. That was before we weren't using computers. So that's, I've been in the business for over 35 years. So I've seen a lot of changes. And I mean, there's, as far as with AI, which is the biggest technology right now, everybody's talking about it. It's, there's good things, there's bad things. From a good standpoint and how I utilize it, everything from, editing images, a simple thing from, expanding them to make them fit in dimensions that they wouldn't normally. What may have taken an hour, I can actually do within a couple minutes now. So that's a great benefit. Helps cut costs for clients. Helps give us some abilities. But even on the aspect of like OpenAI, going in and doing more research, I don't use it. If I'm coming up with content, it's not to actually utilize the content, but it's to help me think differently. Like, give me 20 headlines for a honey company, and this would be specifically towards this. And it's more just kind of giving some general direction. And then when it feeds back, it's kind of like, I never thought about using that word before. I want to utilize that. And then I can craft something, a direction from that. So using it more for research, even for doing some market research and identifying certain markets to see kind of what it kicks back, and then work with the clients and say, do you see that this is kind of who you're talking to? Does this make sense? How should we switch it? Where is it totally off base? Where is it on base? And just kind of use it as a launching pad and some talking points from that. So
often the times in the IT world, I hear this question: Is AI is going to cut the jobs, right? So from your experience in your industry, do you think AI going to cut the jobs?
yeah, I have no doubt. I mean, I think it already has, but it's like anything, you've got to transition. When computers came around, Apple desktop publishing was huge. So, I mean, this is obviously a number of years ago, but all of a sudden, even in the marketing agency world, they weren't necessarily getting as much work because newsletters and brochures, small things like that, they would have their secretaries do it, or their admin, or whoever's ending up helping them out. And all of a sudden they realize they aren't quite as good as they thought they would be. And so it's the mindset that comes into play here, as far as thinking creatively, thinking strategically in those stance. It's not like everybody can end up doing it. You can get to a certain point. That's even like AI. Yeah, it can write copy, but does it sound like what your brand is? And I can see eventually that you're going to be able to craft, you're going to be able to do the prompts and, and develop what that is, but you have to figure out exactly who you are to be able to do that. And from a AI standpoint, it's generating images, but they aren't quite there yet. And a lot of times you can tell an AI image versus another image, and even video. One of the scary things I'd read when I was on vacation last week was a marketing email that I got, and they're talking about AI and talking about the fact of reviews are huge. We all know that. And a review that has a video review, from a customer or something is like gold. But what if you can't get, a video review or necessarily a written one? They were even saying what you need to do is just go on to AI. And they had an example of a guy on the street saying, "Hey, let me stop you real quick. What do you think of this product?" And the lady responded, "Oh, it's amazing," and talked a little bit about it. And that was it. And it was not necessarily a real review. And maybe even if they took a real review, that would be one thing. But all of a sudden, we're taking and making things up. So it's almost like an ad versus a real review. So that is where I find using AI not necessarily in a positive way. And with marketing, that's not, you're losing your trust, you're losing your credibility in those type of ways. So before you start using AI, you need to make sure that it actually matches who your brand is. If you're doing a video, is it your product that's in there, or is there multiple products that are going in, and your customers are going to say, well, that's a video, but that's not necessarily how you use the product, or that's not their product. So right now, it's pretty iffy, but I feel like right now what we're doing is we have to learn it. We got to see how to utilize it to the best of the ability for our clients and for ourselves. And then we've got to keep our integrity and say, how are we going to use it? We don't want to deceive. We want to be able to enhance, to be able to make a better product in a timely manner. So that's going to fall back on each individual that's using it. And that's where and I think it's kind of scary some days, but we'll see what happens. And, we don't say 5 years anymore. It's like, so what's it going to be like next year?
Next year, right? Yeah, it's changing rapidly. Agreeable. So, what is the most difficult part of being a owner of the company?
I would say making sure we've got enough workflow coming through, making sure you're hitting the deadlines, and it's not necessarily keeping your clients happy. To me, that's building the relationship, and that's I like working with my clients where we become partners. Or in some cases, they actually, like one client, it's family. I mean, that's how they refer to me. So building those relationships, and then that becomes long-term. So then it's just like, in this industry, you've got it's up and down. So your pipe's full. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know is, oh my word, there's nothing in the pipe, because you're trying to get all this work done. So then you've got to backfill on some of that. But that's just, like I said, it's part of the industry, part of what you have to do within, a branding marketing firm.
Great. So, what actually inspired to pick this industry?
I grew up as an artist. I originally was going to go to school to be a painter, and then was going to be a teacher. And from there, I actually, while going to school, met a gentleman who was going through commercial art at that point, and that really seemed interesting. And I had another friend from high school who was going to another commercial art program, and talking to them, it just seemed more interesting than necessarily teaching. Because originally, when I started as a painter, it's kind of like, okay, I don't want to be a starving artist, so I'll go into teaching. And then after that, it's like, well, I could, I can illustrate, I can design, all that. So that's what got me into the commercial art side. So it came from an artist's heart going into it.
Mhm. Interesting. That's interesting story. I have something similar as well. So, what is the biggest challenge currently you're facing in this industry?
Biggest challenge, I would say it would probably be AI. I think just for the fact of, like you were talking, the number of jobs, copywriters who are, getting, less copywriters, and even eventually it's going to be, they talk about doing layouts. Facebook is talking about, Zuckerberg's talking about, you can go on, eventually he wants to be able to, somebody can just go on, it will write it, it will design their ads, put it on that, and they're going to be able to do that, I imagine, for print too, eventually. So I think it's the fact of the tools are going to totally change from where they are now, and where does that fall out, and who's going to be in charge of those tools to be able to produce, original pieces. And that's just it. How much of the AI is going to look more canned, more just predictable, kind of just, marginalized creative, because we are creative beings, and I feel like the humans are still going to come up with more things that have more of a soul to them, that's going to have a twist to it, something that's not necessarily out there, at least for the next few years. So yeah, there's a lot of struggle in the industry as far as where it's going to go.
Hmm. Great. So, how do you stay ahead of the curve in this creative field?
So, as far as, are you talking from a technology standpoint, from a creative standpoint? Is there anything
From a creative
from a
standpoint?
creative standpoint? A lot of it is, I love photography. I do photography. I'll do some drawing. I research different, photographers. Just stay on top of what the design trends are, whether it's online, finding different resources to keep current on design trends, whether it's magazines. Yep, there's still magazines out there, like Communication Arts and some of those. I still like the tactile aspect of having like a magazine and flipping through that versus always looking at a screen. But we've got so many more resources nowadays than we did, 25 years ago, I want to say, to be able to keep current on what's going on, see kind of what trends are happening, or, just the knowledge base is amazing out there. So you can kind of look at those different regions depending on what the client is, how you want to position them, and just kind of research how to present them in a different manner.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. So, do you believe in adopting technology in the creative field?
Oh, definitely. Have to. I mean, if you don't, right now, like especially with AI, if you aren't at least sticking your foot into it, you're going to get way behind. And that doesn't mean you have to be fully in figuring it all out, because it's transitioning, because these different tools will become easier as they go. But if you at least have an understanding, when it first came out, oh my word, I was pushing back. I did not want anything to do with it. It's like, but I knew I'd eventually come around, but I just needed to let myself say, okay, I'm getting, I at least need to dig into it and figure this out, so that at least I have a working knowledge, even from the standpoint of online, what are different flags that are showing, the search engines don't, not to populate it because it's coming from all AI generated. It's not original content, things like that. Because people have a tendency, I've got, one client in particular or two that they want to use AI and post that. And it's like, okay, there's a couple of different, flags for it that it's not going to help you at that point. So we need to make sure you're using it as a resource and generate your own copy from it so it speaks like it is of you. And then, but if you can at least get a grasp of it now, once they tweak these, they make it better, because even ChatGTP now gives you an opportunity that it's going to ask you questions, so you start prompting better. Instead of you having to try to write your hope becoming a prompter and figuring out everything. And that's just happened here recently. So I can't imagine a year from now how much easier it will be. And they want it to be as easy as possible so people will use it and be able to come up with the best, the best product for themselves as well. So I say, at least if you aren't, you need to be jumping in and at least starting to understand, see what's going on, see what's out there, because there are so many tools. And at least get an understanding of it, because if you don't eventually get into it, you're going to be totally left behind. Your skill sets are going to not be what other people are wanting you to be able to do.
Interesting. So probably in your entire 19 years of this ownership of the company, you might have reached out to many prospects and you might have heard no, right? So how do you handle that
Yep.
rejection?
How I build that relationship?
How do you handle the rejection?
Oh, handle the rejection. So I know a lot of salespeople, and years ago I had one salesperson tell me the story. He was going out. He was actually doing cold calls, and he went to this one guy, and he's was doing his pitch, and the guy goes, "No, I'm not going to buy, but I just want you to know that you're one step closer, because it might be 1 out of 10 people that will." 9 people are going to say no, and it's that one that's going to say yes. So what I just did was I got you closer to that one person. So it's not that they're necessarily rejecting you. It's just they might not need your service. And a lot of it might even be the fact of utilizing it as an introduction, as opposed to thinking it as a sale and that it's closed. I've had other salespeople go, especially when they've done cold calling. And she goes, most people will stop at about 2 or 3 calls, and rejections, but you need to keep following back up and just checking in with them. And it's usually about the 5th or the 10th time that's kind of like they'll talk to you. So it's just staying in front of somebody. And for me, a lot of it is not necessarily making a call and trying to sell myself as far as I want you to buy, but just build that relationship. The networking aspect, at least even finding out who they are, finding out more about them, because until you know more about them, you really don't necessarily know what their needs are at that point and how you can help them out. So utilizing them as an opportunity, as an introduction, also helps with the whole, nope, we don't need you. But most of the times I'll be able to sit and chit chat with them for a little bit. Unless if they're in a hurry or depending on what's going on in their life.
Good points. So to be a business owner, what qualities do you think the most essential things?
It's not another saying from another business owner. It's not for everybody. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So you've got sacrifices that you'll make. It's not a 8 or 9 to 5 job. It's weekends when business is slow. You don't get to sit back and just wait. You have to go generate the business, or you have to, there's always something going on. So there's never downtime. So consequently, as a bit, when I worked for somebody and it was slow, it's kind of like, oh, I can kind of work on this, I can play around, or I can leave early. As a business owner, that's not the case. And then, when you get to a certain point as a business owner, if it's large enough, you might, but you still got more responsibilities. Your responsibility for everybody that's working for you. They're a part of your family. How are you taking care of them, and making sure that they're succeeding at what they're doing as
Great.
well.
So, what do you advise for the listeners how to take care of the clients?
Take care of the clients. First of all, is how do you want to be treated? Treat them like that. Under promise, over deliver. That right there is probably one of the best things that I do. And case in point, I'll tell a client, if they need it at a certain point, if there's a drop dead, I'll work my rear off to make sure we get that. But typically, make realistic deadlines and try to make sure that I hit. Usually I deliver before. I just had 2 of my clients this past week go, oh, we know you're going to get it to us early. So that's the expectation. So I think that's probably one of the biggest thing is, make sure you're delivering more than what you're promising at that point. We hear, saying the fact of under promise, over deliver. It's more of, think of it as, I'm going to deliver, from the customer standpoint, I'm going to deliver more than what they expect. And just make that your consistency. And that's your low bar.
Great advice. And how do you handle the failures?
Failures help you grow. They, if without challenges, what's life without challenges? We don't grow if it's just, every day the same thing. And it's not that you don't want to be stressed all the time, but it's those challenges and those failures that make you go, okay, how can I learn from that? If I don't keep doing that, that's, you're learning. But if you keep doing the same thing and you fail and fail and fail, obviously your business isn't going to succeed either. But take those opportunities to either, if it's with a client, how can I turn that into an opportunity to make it a stronger client? Typically, if you can take a failure or a loss or something and you own it and you go to the client, you make it right, you make it better, and all of a sudden the next project, you're building trust at that point, which is also part of, one of the number one things in building a strong brand. Is the number one thing I tell people is you've got to build trust. So they know if something goes wrong, and I guarantee you there will go wrong sometime. Hopefully it's just little versus big, but you build that up so they know, okay, I know they're going to take care of me. I work with printers where I've gotten the print job and I'm like, this is not right. This is messed up. And I'll go back to the printer. They'll look at it and they're like, oh yeah, why, we can't figure out what we did wrong. They go back, they make it right. Those printers are the ones I go to constantly because I know stuff's going to happen. But if I know they're going to take care of me and take care of my clients even more so, that's, it's not like they do it all the time. That's a once in a great while, but I know I can trust them that that's going to be done right, done on time, or they're going to go the extra mile, jump the extra hoop to make sure they take care of it if it doesn't go wrong or if it doesn't go right.
Okay. So, according to the statistics, it says it goes by like this. So, to be successful for a company, it takes 5 years. So, when you started your own company, how many years it took?
I had always told, if you make it 2 years, you right there is like the first bar. Then 3 years, and then 5 years is when you've been in there enough that you start building your networking, you start building enough clients that it's more of a constant. You've got a reputation at that point, that helps. But even, and that's not you don't stop at 5 years because it's a day-to-day thing to make sure that you keep that reputation, that you keep in front of your clients, that you build those relationships. And that's what pays off, where all of a sudden you'll get a referral from them. Or I had one networking person I was with, it would have been like 12 years before. And COVID hit, and I'm like, oh, great, nobody wants to do marketing during this time. Fortunately, we were able to, we did decent through that time. But I had this lady come, and she goes, my husband has developed the software, and I need somebody to design, the interface and everything. Do you do that? She goes, I thought you did. I go, oh, yeah, I'd love to. And I hadn't, even touched base with her in a number of years. But it was building relationships, building that network, that all of a sudden when something came along, it's like, oh, I'm going to give Bill at Color 9 a call and see if he can help me out. And if he can't help me out, he might know somebody that can.
Okay. So, yeah, let's put the serious questions aside and let's get into some casual, funny questions. What are your favorite hobbies?
Favorite hobbies would be photography, hanging with my family, my grandkids, playing board games with family. Family is definitely the top one, and just doing family things, and also with friends.
And what is your favorite part or the most thing that you enjoy being the owner of the company?
I get to call the shots. So, you have to deal with, all the issues, but you also get to drive the direction of how the company is, how it is represented, and the different clients that you want to, work with.
And how do you handle the work-life balance?
I do better now. That's probably one of the toughest aspects, because for a long time, it was grinding a lot of hours, and I'm doing it for the family, but I had to realize that I needed to create more the balance, and cut my day off at a certain time, and try to develop to make sure I allocated enough time for my family. But that was probably was and not quite as much now, but was probably the hardest aspect of being a business owner at that point.
You do it better because kids grown up now?
That's a lot of it. Part of it's where I am in my career, my client base that I have. I got great clients. They work well with me as far as needing on some of that. And I work well with them as far as, it's kind of like I had said, if a client needs something now, I bust my rear to make sure I can get it done. But they're also good as far as if I say, hey, can I have an extra couple days? Or even I've had clients, like I was on a cruise one time, and a Marriott client called or texted me and says, I need to talk to you. I called them, and we were walking back to the boat, and they're like, oh, one of my clients here needs this ad put together and designed, and we need to get it out in the next, by tomorrow. And they knew I was on vacation. And fortunately, I was able to work that in, because we were going to the back to the boat. I had time to be able to work through that. But then I've got another client here that I've been working with, that they're like, oh no, you're gone? Nope. We'll talk to you when you get back. So, so those are like amazing clients to work with when you have that. So I've got a lot of those type of clients now that they work with me versus, necessarily always being at their beck and call.
Interesting. Great. And what is one book you recommend for our listeners?
So I just got done reading, let me pull out. There's a gentleman. So this is actually kind of a funny story, but there's two different books by Kevin Corral, and one of them is Rules of the Red Rubber Ball. This is just a small one, easy, quick read. The other book I have upstairs is it's about play. And one of my core values is play. And one of my clients actually is the one who gave me the information on both these. He had been given these two books, and he thought that my company was kind of based on that because the red rubber dodgeball is one of my icons. And I go, no, I'd never even heard of this. So those two books are great as far as when you're talking about inspiration for creative. It helps you think creatively, and it's talking about in the books. We're talking people of leadership and in the creative field and business field and leadership fields. They kind of go back to their childhood and see how play interacted and actually led them into the position that they do now, and how they can utilize play to keep their jobs exciting, keep them fueled and motivated. So that's kind of my last book I read on.
Excellent. Thank you. And one last question of the day. So, what is one advice that you would like to give to the people who wants to start their own business?
Do it.
Just do it.
I mean, if you don't, why? It's going to be hard. But that makes you better. But I mean, I wouldn't want to go back and say, if only I wish I would have. Even if you fail, at least try it, because you're going to learn from that. You're going to learn what you can, your some skill sets, which it may be a year or two later, you'll learn, you might be able to go back and go, okay, this time when I'm jumping in, this is where I struggled last time. Do I need to hire somebody to help me on that? Or can I learn that so that I can do it if I'm starting as a solopreneur? How do I handle that? So learn, like we were saying before, you learn from your failures, and use those as a launching pad for something else. But it's, understand that it's not a 40-hour a week job. And it's definitely not a 30-hour a week if you're wanting to be successful. You're talking at least a 50-hour work week, which was still less than some companies I worked at. But it also can be a 100-hour work week. So just be realistic about that. But also make sure, if you've got a family, you've got friends, that you don't isolate them out. Make sure that you're spending the time. That would probably be, I spent time with family, but looking back, I would try to have had more time with them than I did. So
That's a great advice. Even in today's 9 to 5 jobs, there are companies are making people to work more than 40 hours. They're making people to work on the late nights, weekends, especially in the IT industry.
Well, when I was at Gateway, I was working, 80-hour weeks. So, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, we are done. Thank you so much, Bill, for coming to my show and sharing your thoughts and experiences to help our listeners.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. This has been fun.